I've decided to choose a poem that makes me feel stronger every time I read it. It's called We Are Strong. We are strong. You rely on that fact to hide from the realities that are in your face. We are strong. But at what cost to our physical, emotional, social, psychological well-being? We are strong. We know we have to, or we're finished before we've even begun. We are strong. We have to prepare our children to face yours. We are strong. We get up, show up, and pioneer. We are strong. We know that the change we've been looking for is us. We are strong. Scratch that. We are stronger than we've ever been. We are strong because we've always been strong. And at that point, I usually do one of my salutes because it's important to be strong when you're facing what we would call in Jamaica, Babylon. You know, if you talk to Jamaicans, they'll hear born Babylon, and we can interpret and put transcriptions, but it just means not breaking when the system says break and not being a stereotype. So we are strong, and we are very proud to be strong. We celebrate that fact.
Thank you. I love that. Starting right off the bat with the nuances of power and strength and what it means in your identity. Whew. Okay, so before, it's so tempting to dive right into the conversation and the questions, but we'll start again as you did, the brief introduction. So I'm Kelsey Green. I'm the main designer of the Proven Sustainable Initiative, which you can find at provensustainable.org. And co-host of this conversation series, along with my other partner, K2, who I'll pass to now.
And I am K2 Oladawa, and the principal interviewer for Proven Sustainable, Proven Free. And Nichole, it is such a pleasure and an honor to be on with you this afternoon, evening, because we're in two different parts of the world. Let me begin by saying how much I appreciate your poem and its focus on critical identity and the need for strength and the perspective that people of African descent must bring to life if we are to have a life, wherever we are. And I was really impressed by two of your quotes on the Proven Sustainable, Proven Free website. You say, let's see. I'm trying to pull it up here. Okay, there it is. My forefathers regularly continued to sound the abeng, the animal horn, so they would not be ambushed and murdered. They are Maroons, and in their honor, we relentlessly fight. And your poem, We Are Strong, speaks to that so eloquently. And then you also say, I'm a diversity and inclusion champion. I'm a descendant of Maroons, and I'm proud to share how this has made me who I am. Let's talk about how you were made who you are. Take me back to your childhood.
Thank you for the honor of sharing this moment and this space with you. I am an introvert by nature. So some of my childhood is a blur because I was in a shell, never speaking, never thinking I had anything to add. So I found my voice through my pen years later. But as a child growing up in Jamaica, I was born in 1975. I was with the boys, playing cricket, climbing almond trees, doing things that other girls wouldn't normally be doing. I was not into this dressing up and Barbie doll thing. If I knew about Xena, warrior princess, then I would have identified with Xena. So I am about actually being me and being free. I do not do restrictions. But even in my quiet space, in my, like Maya Angelou, when you go into yourself, because of certain things that I experienced as a child, which I won't go into at this point, but maybe in another podcast, I found that I had myself and I valued my time with myself. So my thoughts, my processes, I was always thinking, and I always knew the answer in class, but I would never put my hand up. I always wanted to put myself forward for debating things, but I didn't have the voice. The words wouldn't come out. So as a child who grew up like that, my father was a head teacher, my mother was a teacher. There were certain expectations that you would continue your education, and I did that. So I have 2 masters, you know. I don't talk about this unless I'm in this space, because I really don't mind if people look at me and think I'm quite simple in my thoughts and in my ways. It kind of makes me see who they really are when they make assumptions and I don't correct them until they find out actually, oh, she's the regional head of nursing and midwifery in London. She's a first-generation immigrant, and they start treating it differently. But I like to get them when they don't know any of that, and they see me and they judge me, and then I can know who I can trust. So I'm quite astute. So as a child, I came out of my shell when I came to the UK in 1996. I came here when I was 21. So I came here, but I always wanted to enter a caring profession. In Jamaica, you weren't seen as very professional if you were a nurse. You come from an academic background, so to say that actually after all the education I'm going to be a nurse, it would be seen as something of a failure. Wrongly, I would add. But coming here and seeing actually that my advocacy, so I would speak up for others, but never for myself. So I learned to be an advocate for others. For me, I didn't even recognize it as the Maroons. That is to tell you how sometimes life is complicated. Because in Jamaican culture, the Maroons were condemned to, oh yeah, back in the time, they're in the mountains, leave them there, wild people, let them stay there. But it's only after learning about my history, after coming and facing oppression and not breaking like that coconut tree in a hurricane that goes down to the point where it must break, but doesn't break. And the wind stops and the tree suddenly comes back up. I identify with that coconut tree. So I was going through a lot of oppression, but I wouldn't break. And I realized there was something in me that was fighting a system that I didn't even understand what it was. And I spoke to my dad, and he told me about the Maroons, and that his father was, he said, not a watered down Maroon, a true Maroon. I started to understand what it was in me, that in meetings, even if my voice was shaking, I would call out injustice. So that's me coming into my own and then finding my pen, because I studied so much. Writing was like natural. I could write in my sleep until I found that my voice, the words would actually come out when I speak. So it's a lifelong journey. I'm 46. It's a lifelong journey of me to this point. So when someone says to me, I want to be like you, Nichole, I'm thinking, wow, where do I begin? Because it is not an overnight journey, but it keeps me humble. It keeps me grounded. I'm never big-headed. I'm never arrogant. I am always the one who says, yeah, you can go for that. I'll stay in the background, and someone pushes me in, pushes me forward and say, no, actually, the fact that you see yourself as needing to be in the background means I'm going to push you to the foreground. And I resist it with everything possible, but I've learned to stop resisting so I can inspire other people.
When your dad told you that your ancestors were Maroons, do you recall that moment?
Yes, because he was very proud. He was very proud because I was outlining the oppression I was going through and my reaction to it. And
you
he said,
were already in England, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
So I'm in England, calling back and telling him what's happening in the big bad world. And he's saying, oh, wow, your reaction is because you're a Maroon. That's why you're not putting up with it. I'm thinking, what does that mean? Explain it to me. And then I did my own reading, my own research about Nanny, Sam Sharp. I'm thinking, we didn't learn enough of this in high school in Jamaica. They didn't teach us this. They teach us about Christopher Columbus. Yeah? And we know what Burning Spear, if you know about reggae music, things like that. So when he told me actually that my reaction was that of a Maroon, I started to stand tall and feel proud that actually I'm standing on the shoulders of giants that I didn't even know about, let alone appreciate. But it made me realize that in moments of adversity, I won't break. And that was a very important moment for me because I thought up to that point that I would break. But it's after he explained to me about how they fought oppression, how they sounded that a bang. That sounding of that a bang so you won't be ambushed means that you never put your guard fully down. You're always ready because you know that ultimately people want you to get into a comfort zone. It's a fine balance because you could walk around with burdens, but actually what it does, it makes you remember what others have gone through and that it must never happen again. So even in my role, I am not about to let anyone come and ambush me and let me trust them when so my discernment comes in. And because I'm an introvert, my intuition, and I don't go against my intuition. I've gone against it before and I won't. If it's in Jamaica and we say things like my spirit takes somebody, yeah? When my spirit takes somebody, it means that in there, and when I'm around them, my spirit is at ease. That means my intuition is telling me that this is someone who I potentially can trust. But if I'm in an environment where my spirit is not at ease, and it's really weird for someone who doesn't come from the culture, we say my spirit don't take that person. There's something about some vibe that they're emanating that means that something is telling me to be cautious. And it might be that I shouldn't be as cautious, but that's just protective.
Understand that you are talking to culture, not cross culture. That I understand every word that you are saying, and I resonate with everything that you are saying and what you have experienced, because I too was an introvert as a child and still am. Wow. And understand how spirit navigates the space for us. So yes, I understand.
Lovely.
And your ability to pick up not just on the resistance of the Maroons, but the humanity of the Maroons, because the clear call and demand was to be free.
Yes.
And it's the human spirit that requires that act of freedom, that what will free. That's what I hear so loudly in your voice and in your manner and your ability to navigate the space, navigate the geographical and emotional and psychological spaces that we have to walk through. I salute you. I definitely salute you. You've been a master nurse for more than 20 years.
Yes.
In the place where the empire once stood.
Exactly.
How has that been for you?
It has been like climbing Everest with extra rucksacks on your back because you underestimated the climb. Every single stage has been fighting against oppression. So for one, I'm a naturally humble person. And people have said to my face that I need to change who I am. I'm a compassionate, transformational leader. I use we language. I get in front, I roll my sleeves up and say, what are we going to do? And I've been told by people, even at chief executive level, that I need to throw my weight around. But as a Maroon, as someone who is for the people and for the freedom of the minds, I cannot possibly change my values to fit in with an organization. So I've had to make some tough decisions throughout my career. Number one, the tough decision has not been to stay true to who I am. That's easy. No matter what kind of fighting, I'd rather leave an organization than change, because I need to look in the mirror and be proud of the person standing there. And if I'm proud now, there is no one on the face of the earth who's going to allow me to change who I am, to fit in and not be, you know, that Frederick Douglass, I'd rather endure ridicule than to abhor, you know? So
yes.
For me, as a first generation immigrant in a country where the racism we say is on the wall. Yeah? So in America, you have big riots, you know, George Floyd killing, it changed my life, and I would like to touch on that a little bit later. But over here, the racism is in the wall. You can't see it. It's a smile. Oh, Nichole is a chip on your shoulder. Nichole is very, so I've been labeled. So they didn't label me as aggressive, which is what they normally do with Black women. They labeled me as defensive. So I had a coach, and I have a tendency, if you push me in a corner, just like a little kitten, even if it's futile, I'm going to strike back. I'm going to try and strike back. So I have a tendency in meetings, and I have to work on that sometimes, where I'll go forward. If they really are rattling my cage, and I'll go forward. So I've learned to kind of sit back and not let them see. So my thing about it is, remember I said to you that I'm quite happy to be in the background. I'm quite happy to be in my thoughts. I am an introvert. That's my comfort zone. That's my happy space. Doing things like this is not necessarily my comfort zone, but this is the only way people are going to hear my journey. So I engage with it. And the more I do it, the more comfortable I get. So I'm able to be animative and to show my personality, because I have that psychological safety that I'm amongst friends. However, to get to where I am, if I wasn't a Maroon who wouldn't break out of spite, just to show that I'm not going to break or whatever it is, I would have broken a long time ago. So I've been in situations where I've gone on secondments to a higher paid band and had to come back down because the system didn't want me to get ahead. But if my face fitted, I would have been head-hunted. But you see that humility in saying, actually, you might look at it as failure that I was seconded there and now I'm here. I'm actually winning because it's on my CV. I am able to be pragmatic. So because of that, I've been able to navigate the space and use my intuition to know when it's time to leave an organization, not overstay my welcome, and put it to bed. So my sister, Camille, would say, Nick, you're very good at drawing a line, you know. So if the milk is spilled, it's spilled. We are where we are, we move on, rather than why did the milk spill, this, that. Draw a line and move forward. And that's important for me psychologically, to avoid being anxious all the time.
As poet, I also hear, as poet, with your introversion, I also hear the ability to use invisibility to navigate those spaces.
Yes.
And I'm going to ask this question, and then I want to turn it over to Kelsey. But that invisibility, how do you bring that invisibility as poet, as artist, into your everyday relationships with your patients? Because those patients, I know all the patients aren't Black, okay? And that white people who come into a situation where they are going to be serviced by a person who is of African descent come with all the attitudes that they have grown up with. How do you navigate those spaces?
Well, the thing is, currently I am in senior nursing strategic leadership. So I kind of stepped away, but I'm going to take you back to when I was a newly qualified nurse. Remember, I'm introverted, so I would be smiling a lot, and I was known as the Smiley Nurse. And I remember walking on the ward, and I would hear the mostly white patients say, "The Smiley Nurse is here," because I was the one who would be using humor and kind of making a cup of tea. They would run their jokes and inappropriate jokes and ask if I'm married, and I would make them at ease. But I found that part of the healing is to kind of make people feel safe. So they felt safe with me. So even though I was, and we would say we're green when you come from the Caribbean and you go to a foreign country, everything is a culture shock. But even though I was green, I was still able to kind of smile and let them feel at ease. There was once that I felt like a mango when a relative said, "You're the nicest one of your kind I've ever seen." And I was quite young. So when someone says to you, and if they had said it to me, no, my reaction would have been different. I've been quicker. But at that time, I just was in shock. They said, "You're the nicest one of your kind that I've ever seen." And I just thought, I feel like a mango, an exotic mango or a papaya. You know, you're just nicest one of your kind. How can you say that to someone's face? So yes, I've been able to, because I look like I am supposed to be a pussycat, whereas I identify as a tigress. That's part of my invisibility. So people don't see you coming. They see you and they think, well, if that's the one they're sending, I can easily manage her, until they try, until they come back and say, actually, ooh, you're a lot tougher than you look, aren't you? And that's when they kind of peel back that onion to kind of understand. But you're right, in terms of a lot of the time I'm underestimated, and I quite enjoy it, to be honest. It's like I just watch it unfold in front of my eyes until they realize who they're dealing with, not because of what I've said, but because of how I've handled their behavior, and I rise above it.
Kels?
Yes, it's all fascinating. So going back to just what you just said around, right, this kind of core, peeling back the onion, the core, the tigress, and this strength, and also really wanting to loop back also to the amazing story you told about your father saying, yes, that's the Maroon in you, right? When you start to identify this strength and how you're opposing these oppressions, and he easily identified this is a strong heritage in you seeking through. And then K2 has since also said, but there's also, you're talking about this poetic silence and this invisibility that you use as part of your strength. Out of curiosity, I'm wondering if you could speak a little bit to your father or your grandfather, if you knew him, of the Maroon descent. And were they more introverted or extroverted in nature? And part of my curiosity is around the multifaceted, so to stem from the mango metaphor, to not say, you're a Maroon, so everything that all of your characteristics are emblematic of all Maroons, but to actually speak even more nuancedly to your multifaceted identities. I wanted to give the platform to be able to speak also to, what's resonating for me as at times, right, what's perceived as more feminine qualities though too. And if any of this silence or the emotional intelligence characteristics that you've learned or inhibit, are stemming from that. So I think that's, what I'm curious and learning would be a little bit about your father or grandfather and how they exhibited strength, and then how that relates to you and your other identities as female.
So my dad was a head teacher, principal, we call him, school principal of a secondary school, tough secondary school. So he had to be tougher. And he was a disciplinarian, extroverted.
Okay.
So loves attention, complete opposite of me, apart from that maroon mindset. So you see, the maroon mindset can be evidenced in extroverts and introverts, but he was extroverted. So he is known as like a walking dictionary, throwing around big words in his speeches and really being the peacock. Whereas I am more simple, using simple words to take people along, because I don't want to alienate people. I want the message to be quite inclusive. So he was operating in a different time frame. He's the first of 11 children. Wow. So his dad was also, from what I can hear, extroverted, very loud, very, very passionate, short in stature, similar to Selassie, Haile Selassie, small, but very neat, close tucked in appearance. It's like when you see the Windrush and the people who came off the Windrush, they're smart looking and they take pride. And don't touch them, it's like, stay away. So he grew my dad as the first of 11. So my dad is like a parent to some of his brothers and sisters. So he talks about his first paycheck, taking it and giving it so that his brothers and sisters could go to high school. So now he's 73. They are looking after him and they say, Nick, we have a duty to look after him, because he was like a dad to us. So this maroon of freedom and empowerment of our own and making sure education really runs through my family history. But as I said, my dad was such a disciplinarian in the school that I say jokingly, and I say to his face, that any army would have been proud to have him as a colonel, as a lieutenant, because he was that strict. But what it did do for me was give me discipline. So, even the discipline to fight a system, it takes discipline and dedication to remain strong, because we're not strong all the time. And we need to know, like Maroons, when to fight and run away so we live to fight another day. So we need to know to pick our battles. So we need to know to surround ourselves with other Maroons who are able to have our backs, and who are able to sound their bang on our behalf. And that can happen from the people of different cultures, actually. I don't just associate with Black culture. I make sure that my message of fairness and equality and diversity, that my white allies, because they are my allies, that they feel that they're part of this as well. And I say to them, so what are you doing? I'm not going to educate you. If you're that interested, you go and find out, because I'm not going to spoon feed you so you can tick a box to say I have a Black friend. That won't be a token. So yes, so that whole extroverted Maroon head teacher with a daughter who's very quiet, but very caring, it has made me who I am, to the point that, yes, I am happy to be invisible, but not as invisible as I once was happy to be. No, I need to make sure that even the young students that I get exposed to them. So in my role, I contact the universities, especially because I've studied so much here. I say, I'm a past student. I want to work with some of your students who have the potential to be me and to pass me. So I'm doing things where I'm giving back and doing mentorship and coaching and kind of making sure the next generation of leaders know that they need to be their authentic self. So if I can get them in when they're student nurses and midwives, to remember to hold true to who they really are, they won't change to fit into a system that will just throw them away when it has had enough of them. They'll be authentic and they'll stand out. So yeah, it is a struggle. It's a struggle to remain strong in a system that, in my view, is designed to break you, to say, well, we did allow one in and look what she did. But actually, I'm not going to be a stereotype and a statistic. So actually, my way of doing it is my way of doing it based on my years of experience, and it is to be valued. And I do take on board feedback. So I take constructive feedback that's given to me compassionately. I will listen. If someone says, actually, Nichole, you reflect a bit too much. Sometimes you overanalyze. I take that on board. But if you come to me to kind of give me feedback to kind of break my spirit, then the Maroon won't allow that to sink in.
No, it sounds great. And I think it's so great and, very important work that you're doing and the message of the authentic self and speaking your truth and serving as that role model for others, particularly in the university setting. Yeah. What role do you think, and it definitely sounds like you've evolved this over time, right? And you said these kind of, even just this conversation and showing up is something that you may not have been comfortable doing previously. So what role do you see this, like sometimes those more intimate inner truths and past experiences and vulnerability playing in how you perceive strength? Because I know you really see that as that core value.
Yeah, I've had a few members of my team who have been struggling with the virtual space and mental health issues, and I embrace them virtually, you know, and I share my experiences when I don't even need to share. And without fail, they say at the end of it, "Thank you, Nichole, for sharing that, because you didn't have to." So they recognize that I'm telling them of experiences that have happened to me in the past, where someone has shouted at me and how it made me feel, and that I can empathize, and what they're going through is a temporary phase, and what I did. And I share my vulnerability to show that a very strong person is not afraid to be vulnerable. Actually, that's how we learn. That's how we learn when it's rocky, when we're feeling out of our depth and we're feeling that, oh, it's not going to work, and we dig deep. That's how you learn, and that's how you become more firm in your position. So that means you're able to withstand that hurricane that's coming, that storm that's coming, that volcano that's coming in different formats. But that humility is very important. You're not to get above, you're not to believe your own hype. Don't, just calm down a bit. Remember who you were and who you are, that authentic self, that at nature, you're really just a quiet person who's been put in a position where they can influence and change other people's lives for good. So I think that vulnerability and owning that proudly, I'll be on calls and I'll say, well, actually, maybe it's just me, but I think I've missed the point. And I'll say something that I can see on the screen that other people are thinking, thank God Nichole said that. So I'm not afraid when there is silence to kind of say, well, actually, what I think is this. And I really don't mind if everyone on the call says something else, but that's what I think, and that's what I think, and I own it. But it takes courage, because most people want to fit in. They want to kind of be with the crew. Actually, I like being the salmon going up. I love it, actually, being that salmon going upstream. You're thinking, what's going on there? But that's me being true to myself and just kind of celebrating my experiences and showing that actually I've been humbled by my experiences to the point where I'm not afraid to say, actually, that made me feel tearful. Oh my goodness, that really hurts when I hear that. I'm so sorry. And it's genuine, and people know when it's genuine, you know, you ask someone, how are you? And before they can answer, you start telling them about your holiday. None of that, you know, you ask a question and you give people a chance to say, yeah, I'm all right, Nichole, I know where you are. But give them the time, even if it's 5 minutes, but give them that time to let them know, I'm here. Let me know what you want to do with this time. So being in the moment as well is really important.
So I have one more question, then I'll pass it back to K2. I think this is so important on that last note you just said about the construct of time. And I'm interested to know your experience since moving, particularly from Jamaica to the UK. Have you had different experiences with these different cultures and how they partake in time and kind of how you flow through your day, and whether it was kind of spoken about and any, you know, time sensitive pressures that were prominent in those societies?
Yeah, so I didn't understand the word stress until I came to this country. I remember the first time stress was introduced as a concept. It's like, I feel stressed, but I didn't feel stressed before when I was in Jamaica. So that as a concept, you know, I'm so stressed, I can't cope, and I'm going to be horrible to you because I'm having a bad day. No, actually, in Jamaica, we talk our minds, yeah? So if somebody upsets you, you might have a few choice words for them, and you clear the air and you move on. Yeah. But this thing about stress and keeping it and nursing stress and not doing anything about it, like that dog on the nail, and oh yeah, I'm just having a bad. What are you doing? You know, if you're in a position that you're not happy with, you must be thinking about what you're going to do to change it. You know, you don't stay in a tunnel and see the light there and stop here. You continue. So that for me is a different concept in terms of time here. Sometimes I feel that they waste time talking about the same topic and the same topic and talking around it. Actually, let's talk about elephant in the room. Let's talk about what we're going to do to make sure that people who look and sound like me feel that we have hope to get ahead in a career. Let's talk about that. So sometimes that can come across as being putting people in an uncomfortable position, but I'm happy to put them there if I feel that they want to just have a talking shop around it and not get to the meat of the matter. Let's talk about it. And then people say, oh, she's very direct. You know, I've had that, and she's very direct. Yes. Nichole, no nonsense approach. They call me that as well. But it's just because I feel that life is so short and precious that we need, if we're going to make a difference and leave a legacy that's worth leaving, we need to kind of ramp up the pace, keep it moving, do something. What are you doing to impact another life? Make sure that your time on this earth is well spent. It's not just about you and getting to the next level. So for me, it's about action, but knowing when to stop. So if you're tired, you rest. You don't give up, you rest. And then you come back stronger. So yeah, in Jamaica, it was more relaxed, you know. No problem, man. Yeah. We do it soon. You know what soon is? Soon come in Jamaica. Soon come, man. Soon come. That could be any time between now and never. Soon come, yeah. Or you know, over here is like soon come. They want to know when, within what time frame, you know, when are you likely to be here? Yeah, man, soon come. So I've had to learn that actually you can't say later. You know, later means later. It doesn't mean sometime in the future. You know, it's that kind of thing that you have to be careful about what you're saying. Yeah, I see you later, but you have no intention of seeing them later that day. That can sometimes get lost in, you know, and seem as if you're not disciplined or you're not a person of your word, but actually you didn't really mean it like that. It was different cultural context. So yeah, it's different, but it takes, I've been here for so long that I'm able to adjust. So if I'm in Jamaica, I think I'm in a Jamaica way, but they pick up that, yeah, she doesn't live here anymore, does she? But when I'm here, people say, oh, I love your accent. You know, your accent is really melodic. It's from Trinidad. It's from Barbados. No, try again. And sometimes they never get Jamaica. And then they say things like, well, you're not the typical Jamaican, are you? And that is when the argument starts, because it's like, what do you mean by typical Jamaican? And I have to explain that in Jamaica, I'm from the countryside, I'm from Westmoreland by the sea. So my way of being is more relaxed than if I maybe was brought up in the country. But even so, not everyone in the town, not everyone is the same. We're all different people, and we have different accents, different identities, different ways of being based on social class more than anything else. You know, your level of education and all of that. But it still means I'm a pure Jamaican. You know?
All right. Nichole, can you talk a little bit about the Windrush generation and the recent scandal, and how has that affected your life and your navigation through British society?
Well, I think it has been tragic to see how the Windrush generation have been treated in the UK. I mean,
can you just tell us what the Windrush generation is, because we don't want to.
Yeah, so okay, so you know, I talked about the Empire Windrush, the ship that came with a lot of West Indian people after the World War, because they had to rebuild their country, and they went to the Commonwealth and asked people to come over. So people answered the call to come to the motherland, England, and they came here and were settled here for many years. And they went into industries like being bus drivers, into the health system as well. But what we found was some of them were never integrated into society to the point where they had papers. So they came over on different documentation. And we had a scandal a couple of years ago where, because they weren't able to prove that they had been here legally all this time, even though they were able to show that they went to school and everything, some of them were wrongly sent back to their country. And some of them have died without actually being given the freedom of being seen as a British national. And so the government here really, they haven't done enough to rectify that harm that they've done. And even now, people are working to get compensation for the time that they weren't able to work because suddenly you were in a job as a teacher, you can't prove that you are here legally, you have to stop. So it had a lot of impact in terms of mental health and financial and just the whole reputation of that racism that just came back because of people who came here to rebuild the country were then treated so appallingly. So that's the scandal of the Windrush generation. And it's on their shoulders that I stand. So as a nurse, a lot of them came and worked in healthcare, but they could not get selected to do the training. They were bright enough. So it wasn't about ability to do it. It's just that the system was so racist that it wouldn't allow them to pass the entry test. It didn't want to encourage them to become registered nurses. So a lot of them became auxiliary nurses, enrolled nurses, nursing assistant. So they didn't get to self-actualize. They didn't get to be the best versions of themselves and to inspire other people. So that is damning when I think about them. And I was a Windrush Award finalist a few years ago, and I was very proud to be a finalist in this because of my research that I was doing into the experiences of Black Caribbean patients. But it just means that when I'm fighting oppression, I'm fighting it on behalf of people who didn't even get a chance to be in a position to take up opportunities that I have. So I feel really, really angry when I think about how they've been treated. And I think that if there's anything that I can do to kind of shine a light on their contribution to the British society, then I have a duty to do so.
Thank you for that explanation. I know that the research that you just mentioned into people from the Caribbean coming to England and being treated. What have you discovered? What have you found in your nursing, your research?
What I've found is that actually we are not as different as people want to make it out to be. To say actually a Black patient needs this, a white patient needs that. Yes, we need culturally competent staff. We need people to understand that not because I'm from Jamaica means I must like rice and peas. I might not like rice and peas. So you need to approach me with that in mind and not make assumptions that that is what I want for my dinner. I might want steak and kidney and whatever, I might be English. I might identify with that culture more. So you ask me, you treat me as a human being, as an individual, and you give me choice. So what I've found is that patients need choice and they need to be treated. All patients want to be treated with respect, regardless of culture, regardless of if they even understand English. That Smiley Nurse that I told you about, the kindness, that's what they want, to know that their dignity will be protected. But actually that cultural competence, that staff are able to be confident to say, so what do you want to eat today? And not say, oh, well, I was rushing and I saw that he's from Jamaica, so I'm just going to choose for him. You don't do that. That's not how you show that you care. So I have had to pause my research for health reasons, and I've been diagnosed with this really weird condition. And as a Maroon, it takes a lot for Maroon to kind of pause anything, but that's the emotional intelligence coming in, where actually I'm able to make a great impact by even being invited to speak on this kind of platform, that actually pursuing a PhD at the time was not where I was meant to be. So I have a condition called erythromelalgia. No one who I speak to knows about it, but it's called man on fire disease. So my extremities become inflamed and red, and I get nerve pain. And that I attribute that to years of fighting the oppression. And you know, sometimes people say it will come out in some way. So I have this condition that I'm living with. It is not controlling me. And the doctors who treat me, I use CBD oil because they put me on lots of medication, but I wean myself off, and I'm on CBD oil, where I'm able to take something that's very natural. You know, as a Jamaican, I can identify with that. I feel that actually I'm able to still live out my purpose in life, even with a condition like this. But I say that deliberately, so that anyone who watches this, who has a chronic illness, who thinks, well, actually, that's the end of me inspiring. No, actually, you change focus, but still carry on with your goal and your path. And it might not be easy, but actually, it shows that actually you've responded to something that you didn't choose, but you're not letting it break you.
All right. During the pandemic, and the pandemic's still going on, but during the 2020, you established Maroon Mindset Unlimited, right?
Yes.
Now, we know you have, it's real clear from this conversation that you have a Maroon mindset. Now, what is the unlimited?
Well, so you know where I said to you that actually sometimes you need to know when to leave. I was in a role where it was made very clear to me that I was not welcome there anymore. And I was on a secondment. And so the door had been closed behind me, not by me, but by the organization. So as someone who in the pandemic thinking about applying for roles, I thought, well, what I'll set up a consultancy. Yes, I'll do that. That's within my gift. So I thought, let's set up a consultancy. Let's see where it goes. And there was no other name but Maroon Mindset, and it's unlimited. Yes, because it was me saying to whoever had shut the door that actually you might shut that door, but I'll open this door. And so what I did, I used my social media presence to say, I've started a business. And within a week, I was getting NHS organizations coming to say, okay, we'd like you to come and do this and do that. And we'll do this. I hadn't even formulated the idea yet. So actually it took off, and I was able to work with an organization that convenes different hospitals, and we created a safe space. And throughout the whole George Floyd pandemic, I was the consultant, the external facilitator. And they've even contacted me this week to say, we need to touch base with you. But it just shows you that out of adversity can come great development. That actually, yes, let the door close. And if the door needs to stay closed, let it close. There will be other doors. So I use that as well in terms of mentoring and coaching. So I focus mainly on my mentoring and coaching just to be kind of free. You know, I don't charge for that. I mean, that's priceless. I couldn't put a price on that. But when I worked with the organization, I had to do a proper business and cost it and do it like that. And they even looked out for me because they could sense that actually she's not really doing this for the money. So they were able to say, actually, Nichole, you haven't done this. You need to make sure you cost for your time. Mm-hmm. But it was me creating and identifying with that Maroon mindset and being public with it. And a lot of people have said, you've made us more proud of our Maroon heritage. You know, I've always been a Maroon and knew about it, but I've never been proud to own it. And they've said actually, and when they see different clips about the Maroons, they send them to me and I say, Nichole, have you seen this? Have you seen the chief in a compound? So it makes people more proud that, you know, yeah, it's good to own who you are.
I mean, that takes me right to the next question. Is there a formal organization of Maroons within Britain?
Not that I'm aware of. No, I've not come across any at all. No Maroon associations at all outside of Jamaica. I don't know if there are any in the US, but really the focus has been using social media, and there are a lot more social media savvy now in terms of getting their message out. But even in getting the message out, there's been a bit of a backlash recently about Maroon history and saying it's not as it was painted out to be. And you have people who are for and against the Maroons in Jamaica. So there is a dialogue that's being played out at the moment, and people saying, well, they were working with the oppressors to hand people back so that they would maintain their freedom. And some others say, actually, well, they were trying to free as many, but some people would not be freed. So it depends on who you speak to. But I stand firm in the belief that this mindset of not giving into oppression is what I identify with. And we can't use the lens of 2021 to go back and judge what was happening at a time when you had something like slavery. I am not able to judge anybody who was there and who did what they did because I wasn't there. I don't know what the conditions were. So I don't engage into this social media arguments about it. I think let's read and you decide where you stand. The freedom to choose. I'm not going to impose it. But what I found in using my approach to celebrating the work of the Maroons, people have been able to come forward and to understand what I mean by the Maroon mindset. So it's not that everything that a Maroon does, I agree with, if you know what I mean. There'll be things that I think actually in a modern world, you're saying you're a sovereign state, but yet you use the facilities when you choose to. That for me needs some working through. Because if you're such a sovereign state, why is it that you don't have your own infrastructure to limit your contact with Jamaica? And that would limit the conflict with the Jamaican government. So there are things that I would do slightly differently in terms of building up the water infrastructure, the education. But that would take time for me to even understand why it's been the way it is and how long it would take to get it to where I think it should be.
Okay. Your poetry as a healing art, when you address poetry as a healing art, can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, for me, I didn't think of myself as a poet until I met online Yasa Safari, the dub poet from Jamaica. And he liked one of my poems on social media. Don't know how he found it, but he liked it. And I was really happy that he liked it. And he reached out to me and said he works off energies. You remember we were talking about energies, and he says there is something really pure about your energy that I would like to invite you to be on the Jamaica Poetry Festival. I said, number one, I'm not a poet, and I'm an introvert. I don't think that would work. So he said, do you write poetry? I said, no, but when I went back on my blog, I found poems, but I didn't identify as a poet. It was just me putting words down, my thoughts to clear my head. But I found a healing in the writing. I found that when I'm going through something really bad and I write it, I feel, wow, I've kind of closed a chapter on it. It's like, yes, it's put to bed. I've processed it. Look at it. It's on paper. It can't hurt me. It's just there. So I use the healing arts as a way of saying, by me writing and saying my poetry, you too might be in a situation of turmoil that it can provide some calm and healing for you. So it's that healing art, and that nursing is an art. So as a nurse who is a poet, it's important for us to kind of embrace that creative space and to kind of not fit into a box, you know. It's like, I'm a poet, I do this, I do that, but it's about healing. So even when I'm talking about a topic that's quite hard hitting, you know, there is something in there that if you look carefully, it doesn't end in a negative way. It doesn't end in anger. It ends in kind of, but we're still fighting, or we're still strong, or we still continue the work of the Maroon. So it's that sense of it goes on. I'm passing the baton on to somebody else who could take it and run with it.
Always lifting that human spirit.
Always. It's important, especially in these times when it is easy to give up. That is the easy bit. Fighting is the hard bit. And we need people who believe in themselves, that they're strong, or else you won't fight.
Let me ask you this as the last question before I pitch it back to Kelsey, and then we pitch it to you for the Maroon poem. You are not only a nurse and an academic and a poet and a cultural worker, you're a mother.
Yes.
How does motherhood impact your Maroon mindset?
My daughter is 9, and there was a time when I don't remember what the occasion was, and she says, it's a good thing you're a strong Maroon, Mom. It's a good thing you're a strong Maroon. And I don't know, I think she just picked it up over me talking about it. And she now understands that her mom is a strong Maroon. So there's not anything that's going to break her. I think as a mother, it's important for me to ensure that my children own their Blackness and embrace it and be proud of their Black skin, and to stand tall, and to know that there might be certain situations where people have a lower expectation of them because of their Black skin, but that doesn't mean you're going to allow them to be right. You're going to show them that actually you've judged me wrongly, and you need to judge me by the content of who I am and what I bring to the table. So as a mother, it's important for me to be strong. But at the same time, if I'm having a day when I'm in pain, they know, and they say, you need some water. So they know that being strong doesn't mean you're just making a lot of noise and being tough all the time, but actually you come back to that center of strength. So anything else is not where you're going to stay, but that strength is what is continuous. And I'm passing that on to the next generation.
Well, let me say this. If you ever come to Indiana, if you ever find your way to the US and you happen to be in Indiana,
yes,
you have a place where you will be at home.
Oh, that's wonderful. I'll take you up on that offer, definitely. I'd love to come to the US. It's really important for me when I do things like this from another culture, that I am humbled by the fact that you even wanted to speak to me. You know, I knew we would fill the hour. I knew that we would have a lot to talk about, but just to think about where I started from and where I am, and to spend this time with you, it would be lovely when all of this madness in the world is over, to come over there and to show, you know, that the impact that you can have by being your normal self. You don't need to change to fit in, and that you can have a really big impact in the world by just being your normal self.
Yes, ma'am. Kelsey?
Yes. This has been very inspiring, grounding, thought-provoking, motivating. And I think I want to be sensitive to the time and wrap this up. So just on that last message that you shared with us about what you're passing on to your children, is there anything else you want to speak to about your efforts or work at large right now? What you're doing to?
I think I would like to be involved in your project in different ways, and to kind of showcase it here. And when I've tweeted about my involvement, people are really energized by it, and the resource that you've created. I have other scholars here who are into Black history, are into different ways of transcultural exchange, who are really keen to learn more. So I will be sharing this podcast when it comes out, and to show that actually the work that you are doing will live on, and the legacy that you are creating in this platform is really, really important for us as we go through life and learn about other cultures. You know, when I come onto your platform, I'm thinking, wow, I've never heard of this. Oh, the Maroon's there and this. And it's just wonderful. And I click the button and I navigate, and I'm excited like a child when I'm on that platform. So I want to make sure that I'm an ambassador this side of the pond for you. So you can say, actually, Nichole, we've done this new. Can you send it out to your networks? Because it's really important for us to celebrate what you are doing.
That means so much. It's an honor for us to have you as an advocate. Yeah. Thank you. And thank you for your story and time.
I have a lot more.
I bet. Gosh, we're going to have you as a revisit. Another guest again. Do you want to end? I mean, K2, is there anything else? Or I guess also, is there anywhere else that you'd like people to check out your work? We can also share links, so I'll follow up with that. But if there's anything else you want to speak to about where people can follow or find your work, and then,
just on my website, NicholeMcIntosh.com. So that's Nichole, Nichole, McIntosh, McIntosh.com. And it just tells you, it's a 360-degree look at me as a person and what I'm passionate about. And it just means that you don't have to fit into a box. You know, you can do it, but just pace yourself. So that's what I'd like to end on.
Thank you. And then K2.
Okay. Well, Nichole, thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Peace and blessings, gratitude and love.
Same here.
Yes. And then do you have one other poem that you would like to share with us?
Yes, I have the Maroon poem. Okay. So the Maroons, sons and daughters of slaves, we were led to believe. Well, in fact, we were African kings and queens who they colluded to steal. Rebellious and ingenious, our forefathers would take no more. Up into the hills they escaped and were unapologetically militant for sure. Kill or be killed was the order of the day. The blood-sucking vultures who ventured there had a bloody price to pay. Camouflage and guerrilla warfare were their chosen tools. Still came the evil and determined fools. Do as you're told, know your place, the messages were sent. Still, my forefathers were tenacious, courageous, and hell-bent. To free as many of us as they could was their plan. Some wouldn't listen, so they stayed toiling the land. Nanny warned Kodja, you can't trust them. He agreed, and they worked out a system. A peace treaty only came after many of the imbeciles were slaughtered. My forefathers then regularly continued to sound their beng, so they would not be ambushed and murdered. They are the Maroons, and in their honor, we relentlessly fight. Fight in the morning, fight in the day, fight in the night. There ain't no giving in. In true Maroon determination, doggedness, and defiance, we will win. The point remains today as it has always been. Oppression, subjugation, and enslavement are some of the wickedest sins. Black lives matter. We matter.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.